The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Subscribe to the First and 12 podcast. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio.
Welcome to another edition. It is First and 12 right here on KSL News Radio. Every Tuesday here with you. We fly high on a Tuesday here with the college football crowd because you, of course, have Cougar Tracks every dang day right here. You can get Cougar Tracks. If you've been dipping in, by the way, with Mitch Harper and the rumor mills that have been flying around, you've got to get, if you're not subscribed already, if you're not getting those updates, if you're not getting the video stream of Cougar Tracks, you got to do it. Of course, BYU football with Kalani Sitake also comes up right after our program, but we, of course, tackle everything Big 12 related on our First and 12 program, and everything, of course, has a little bit of that local feel because right here in the great state of Utah, we've got Utah and BYU here. Mitch, what's up, man? How's the Tuesday treating you? Everything feeling good? Did you get some rest on a bye week?
Yes, there was some rest, and it was kind of a slow week in the Big 12, but there were some really good games. But it was nice to just sit back, watch all the action in the Big 12 conference. But yes, I'm ready, locked and loaded, ready to go for another week of Big 12 action here, week 4, and should be a really eventful week, I think, in the Big 12 conference this weekend.
Let's kick it all off as we always do. We're going to fire it off with the biggest headlines across the Big 12. Let's jump in right here.
12 headlines.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The dozen storylines that shape this week of Big 12 football. Headline 1.
Non-conference play is starting to wind down in the Big 12. There's still a few more games left to be played, but the Big 12 has the second best record against Power League non-conference opponents at 6-6. Not bad, behind only the SEC, who's got far and away the best winning percentage, but Big 12 showing well against its Power Conference peers.
Yeah, look, and when the SEC's leaning on a good showing by Vanderbilt to be able to pump those numbers up, I always love it. Now, I will say though, it is interesting to see the talking heads now kind of back up and go, no, here's what we really think's going on here. And when you start to see this dust settle across the next few weeks, it's going to be very interesting as to who is actually real on these in these polls across the country and who's faking it. And of course, you always get that, but it is always interesting to see the power conferences go, wait a minute, we were supposed to have 7 teams in the college football playoff this year. Number 2, how about Utah starting off slow at Wyoming? They end up cruising in that second half to a 31-6 victory. I will say starting slow felt weird because they had so many yards. They had almost 300 yards of offense by the half and only 3 points to show for it. My thing was, hey, Utah fans, relax. They blew the doors off of Wyoming in the second half. Would you have preferred to blow the doors off in the first half and then have a vacant second half? I think the way that they ended is still a great indicator as to where this team is, and more importantly, Devin Dampier still looks phenomenal. Even during all of this, if you're going to get mad about a freshman kicker who didn't put enough points on the board, that's not where you should focus things. I think that they did it right. They scored 28 straight in the second half. And Utah's still really, really good. But yes, the 3-0 number was very concerning at the half, I think, for a lot of Utah fans.
We're all counting down to Saturday, Utah against Texas Tech. And headline number 3 is Texas Tech continues to destroy everyone in their path. They wrap up non-conference play with a blowout victory over Oregon State, 45-14, after a long weather delay.
Yeah.
Kicked off at, I think, 1:30 local time. Didn't get over until about 7:30. It was on all day, that Texas Tech game. But Utes and Red Raiders, we'll get to that game a lot coming up a little bit later in the show. But, man, we cannot wait for that one coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, and it's going to be an early one. It'll be weird in that sense because I think Rice-Eccles Stadium is at its best when it's dark out. But everybody will be in that even playing field. It's going to be early for everybody, so there you go. Houston, you and I both called it.
We did.
We didn't like the Colorado Buffaloes going into Houston and showing up Willie Fritz. They just looked a little bit too out of sync, and it ended up being even worse for Colorado, whose quarterback woes continue. Ryan Staub is not the total answer, I don't think, yet for the Buffs. But more importantly, Houston's got a dang good offense this year compared to what they had last year. Now, that's not saying much, but Connor Regman's brought some type of energy there, and Houston is going to get wins this year in the conference when you might see other people go down. Houston's not going to be one of those teams. They're on the rise.
Yeah, Houston running back Dean Connor's been really good for the Cougs. And headline 5, time to panic with Colorado. I mean, the defense is a mess. They've got issues at quarterback. You brought up Ryan Staub. This might be a low point for Coach Prime. I know he had the 4-8 season in year 1 in the Pac-12. But it feels like, I mean, Houston could be a really good team, potentially, this season. And they'll look back on this moment and say it was okay, but Colorado is struggling. They lack any sort of identity at the moment. Headline 6, Arizona gets a signature win under Brent Brennan by taking down Kansas State. They're 3-0, are the Arizona Wildcats.
Yeah, we smelled blood in the water last week. I think Arizona did too when they saw that K-State was struggling, and K-State struggling is actually, I think, way putting it lightly for that program there at Kansas State. The folks in Manhattan should be nervous. But to get back to Arizona, I think a great thing for them to build on, obviously, because they had such a down year last year. I think Noah Fafita and Brent Brennan kind of got together in the offseason and said, we got to make this thing special. And they're going to figure it out. And they have been so far. We'll see if it's real once they get into that full conference slate. Not against Kansas State, but speaking of Kansas State, is their season over? I say yes. I mean, we talked about it early. To struggle against North Dakota, okay, bad. To lose against Army, terrible. You're now 1-3 on the season when across the street, the team that you played in Farmageddon, Iowa State, is just catapulting off that Ireland win, and they're 4-0. You went the opposite direction, and we aren't the only ones who have questions. Chris Kleiman has no idea what's going on with his own team.
And Kansas State, they're 1-3, but it feels like they're winless because that one win, as you said, was against North Dakota in close fashion and an FCS team. They have been a mess this season. And Iowa State, as you noted, headline 8, they survive at Arkansas State, 5th hottest game in the history of Iowa State football down in Jonesboro, Arkansas. The Cyclones hold on 24-16. They're now 4-0 on the season. Felt like it was just a team that was really tired after an international game, 3 straight weeks. So they played a lot of games in a short period of time. Now they're in the bye week, and Iowa State's flying high and highly ranked in the national rankings. Yeah,
the highest ranked of the Big 12 teams, and jumping out to that 4-0 start, exactly where Iowa State needed to be. But, people look and they go, hold on a minute, 8-point win against Arkansas State. This was a trap game all the way. Every time that they had this one on the schedule, they probably looked at it and went, do we buy ourselves out of this or what? Arkansas State at Arkansas State is a weird game to go play, but they survived, like you said, and you have to have games like that in the season if you're trying to go and do something special. How about Rich Rod and the backyard brawl in the Mountaineers of West Virginia? Getting a win in overtime against Pitt. I didn't think it was going to happen. Neither of us saw this one happening too. When their running back White went down, we said, no chance. Their quarterbacks haven't been playing great. And Rich Rod dug deep, got into the well of old Rich Rod magic, and they got the win against their big rival Pitt. That's a huge one for them because maybe they parlay that into something big time.
No question. It was a big win on the heels of losing to Ohio the week prior, who, by the way, Ohio kind of hung tough with Ohio State. Yeah. So maybe that's not as bad of a loss as we thought last week.
I said they've been strong in the MAC. I said to watch out for the Bobcats.
But these, I was also glad to see West Virginia and Pitt renewing their rivalry. They signed a long-term extension. They're going to be back in action 2029 to 2036. I know it's not a Big 12 matchup, but that is a great rivalry game in college football, and it was just fun to see that emotion and excitement from a West Virginia fan base that hasn't had many high moments really since they've been in the Big 12. And it was interesting, too. The last time Rich Rod was playing against Pitt, they lost in 2008. It was 13-9. They win on September 13th, 9-13. It was poetic for Rich Rod getting that backyard brawl win.
No, I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious, says Mitch Harper. Brendan Sorsby, headline 10. The quarterback for Cincinnati throws 5 touchdowns in a quarter. Cincinnati goes up 56-0 before the half. Mitch against Northwestern State before putting up a 70-burger on them. And that, of course, inside of one of my favorite rules, which is a mercy rule in college football where they take time off the third and fourth quarter clocks. It's always the most embarrassing thing for a team to go, can you take 5 minutes off of each quarter? And you go, yep. So the rules are you got to take 5 minutes off of the third and the 5 minutes off of the fourth if you're up by a certain amount at the half. 56-0 is quite a bit. But more importantly, Cincinnati's got some nice juice in the after an almost, they really could have pulled it off against Nebraska. If they would have done that, we would have been talking about a very different Cincinnati team. I think they look pretty tough.
Yeah, they're going to be a team that knocks off some squads in Big 12 play. I really feel like they're going to get to a bowl game this year, and it's boom or bust for Scott Satterfield. If he needs to save his job, they've got to get to a bowl game. Headline 11, Arizona State bounces back after putting together a strong performance defeating future Pac-12 team, Texas State. They take down the Bobcats 34-15. The score doesn't seem all that great, but I thought that was a sound performance It was the best game I think that Arizona State's had this point of the season. And I think what was more noteworthy, too, was the fact that after a loss, you would think, okay, ASU fans are going to give up. They actually sold out that stadium in Temp V. Maybe Dillingham truly has activated the Valley like he's talked about so much. I thought that was something of note, too, because we know that fan base. When you lose, see you later. We'll
away.
talk to you another time.
Yep.
But they actually showed up after a loss. I thought that was significant, too.
Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, don't count them out. They needed that. That was my upset watch of the week, and I was dead wrong on it. But good for Kenny Dillingham and his guys to reel that one back in, because this season could have gotten out of hand pretty quickly if they had had 2 losses in a row. Finally, Baylor and TCU taking care of business against the FCS teams that they faced off against. A couple of the best quarterbacks in the conference, by the way, Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover, just still impressive. We'll see when it gets into conference play what these guys look like. But right now, both of those teams kind of humming. We'll see what happens this week. But excited to see what the quarterback conference is going to bring this week, Mitch, to the land of college football.
And that's your Big 12 headlines this week in Big 12 football. Let's take our first break. On the other side, we'll get to some of the takeaways that we learned from Week 3 action. It's 1st and 12. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry with you on a Tuesday night here on KSL News Radio.
Read all the stories about BYU sports no one else has heard. Go to KSLSports.com for exclusive columns by BYU insider Mitch Harper. That's KSLSports.com.
Welcome back into 1st and 12 here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. It's interesting, the Big 12 Conference, we've talked about it here on the show quite a bit. For just whatever reason, this league gets overlooked. We were talking in the commercial break about teams like even TCU, how they had that amazing performance on Labor Day night, but it just gets erased from everyone's memory, and no one's talking about TCU. Alex, there was an interesting rating or ranking that was put out by ESPN's Bill Connolly, and he created the S&P Plus ratings. And that S&P Plus rating, it's an advanced metric to kind of forecast the strength of teams and kind of also factor in the history, how they've done recruiting-wise the last 3 or 4 years, and then on-the-field success the last 3 or 4 seasons as well. He put out a rating on S&P based on his data. If it was just solely focused on what has taken place in 2025 on the field, no factoring in brands, history, all that stuff.
What weights more in these rankings? Is it the offensive production? Is it combined with defensive production? Is it your strength of your opponent? How do they come up with this?
I kind of compare it to basketball with Ken Pom, how you just dominate teams, the sheer dominance.
So you're talking about like time of possession goes into it, point totals, yardage totals, and how much you hold teams to. So it's basically just like all numbers, advanced numbers on your team puts your ranking there. And then, of course, obviously wins and losses are the thing that are put at the premium. So.
Yeah, you get an offensive rating, you get a defensive rating, and a special team. So really just kind of complete football teams. And what's interesting is that 4 of the top 10 teams in college football, based on this, if it's just solely based on what's happening on the field this year, 4 teams would be from the Big 12, and the number 1 team in the country is Texas Tech.
That's wild. Well, from a numbers standpoint, you can't argue with the fact that they put up, what is it, 57.5 points a game so far this year.
Yes.
Almost 600 yards a game this year. They're beating the tar out of everybody. And on top of that, they are mightily improved on defense. I actually had this discussion yesterday with somebody. It was like, this is the difference of this Texas Tech team versus the ones that you and I watched growing up, who were insane on offense. Like, listen, Texas Tech was churning out insane quarterbacks. They were churning out massive amounts of points every week. They were in those conversations of 45 to 50 points a game all year long because Mike Leach would bring that slinging offense, and they loved that. You know, you think of your Patrick Mahomes throwing for 700 yards against Baker Mayfield who threw for 600, right? I mean, you think about those types of performances. Texas Tech never had the dogs on defense to be able to make themselves big enough. And now they have like one of the, if not the best defensive line in the country. That's unheard of down in Texas, that Texas Tech would win the trenches against anybody, but that's where they spent their money, and it's paying off right there. And I think that's the difference of a team who's going to go far. If Texas Tech is what we think they are, they're going to give Utah a run for their money on Saturday. I don't think they're going to win, but But I do think that Texas Tech is good enough to compete in the trenches against a Utah team that they never had business competing against in those trenches before.
And other top 10 teams in this S&P Plus ranking, if it was just based solely on what's happened on the field this year, 4 would be BYU.
That's wild.
8 would be Utah, and 10 would be TCU. Imagine the view of this league if you had the rankings looking like that. We wouldn't be talking about, well, the Big 12 is just, an afterthought league compared to the Big 10 and the SEC. No, this league has got some good teams. It's just for whatever reason, I think people just look at these teams like Tech, because you're right. That's how I've always viewed Texas Tech. Great offenses, B.J. Simons, Kingsbury, Graham Harrell.
Yeah.
We could go on and on. But they never did it on defense. And then BYU, what have they really done nationally in the last 15 years? Like, we know firsthand that they've been really solid and they always win, but they haven't broke through.
Yeah.
Whereas Utah, they've had a lot of success consistently, haven't got to a playoff yet. And then TCU, they always just get labeled as, well, they got to the title, but they got exposed.
So the thing that's interesting about this is looking at it from the standpoint of being blind to everything that happened before 3 weeks ago, basically.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what you're looking at. You go, and everybody, when we talk about rankings, what's the big complaint? I mean, Notre Dame is 0-2 and they're 24th of the country. That's like a perfect,
Exactly.
okay, what are we doing here? Because you don't really know. Yeah, but they lost to a Miami team who we still, it's early, but we think they're a lot better than maybe we thought they were. And then they lost to a Texas A&M team who was also ranked. But Texas A&M moved up 15 spots after beating a Notre Dame team that moved down 16 spots. So we don't. Why is that version of the rankings more important than this one? If we just looked at it and said, all right, let's put the rankings together based off of just right now. And I don't care what your brand is. And guess what? Every once in a while, Oregon, Penn State, USC, who else? Oklahoma, Florida State, Nebraska. These are all big name teams that are, considered blue bloods. Oklahoma and Nebraska certainly in that conversation. USC. Hey, even you USC fans, I could look at and go, look, we didn't like you before the season, but you're playing well so far. I don't think anybody looks at USC and goes, no, they're actually garbage right now. You've got an 0-3 team in LA and you've got a 3-0 team in LA. It's pretty easy to see which one's better than the other. But I don't know. No ranking is perfect. But if you were just doing it based off of right now, if you had memory of a goldfish and just went to 3 weeks back, this would be the reality of rankings. And I don't hate it because all the teams who are in the SEC and the Big Ten who already have a loss or who have been struggling, Texas, like everybody's looking at Texas and going, why are they still where they're at? What did they move down to 8th after that not good performance against UTEP? And Arch Manning might not be a very good quarterback. We don't really know. The reality is that team shouldn't be a top 10 team. They don't feel like it. Everyone knows they don't feel like it, but they go, yeah, but they had them there in the preseason poll. But why were they there in the preseason poll?
And they played Ohio State. And
no reason.
And they have a famous quarterback. And I thought this ranking, again, it was all just based solely on this year, but I thought it was just fascinating that if you truly eliminate preseason hype and expectations and just focus on the data, focus on the dominance from these teams, it's pretty impressive. I thought it was also noteworthy, too. Number 15, Mississippi State, who beat Arizona State, and everyone plummeted Arizona State out of the rankings after going on the road in the SEC and losing a game at the final play of the game. Mississippi State's pretty good, but no one's talking about them because in the preseason they were picked as the last place SEC team. So by a byproduct of that, Arizona State plummets out of the rankings because they lost to the last place SEC team. And we all know how that works. The media sometimes gets it wrong, as was the case with ASU last year.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating that when you do eliminate the preseason hype and just focus on the data of what's happening on the field, that's a pretty cool ranking, and it's balanced across the country and shows
lots of different
there's
conferences.
a lot more parity in this sport than we realize.
Well, but then also ask yourself, do you feel like Texas Tech is the number 1 team in the country? I can't actually say no to that. But I don't feel
I think
like
they could win a playoff game.
But I don't feel like BYU is the number 4 team in the country. Is Utah
Their
the number?
defense is elite, though.
Their defense is absolutely elite.
They will travel. They'll show up to any game. Like BYU's defense can go blow for blow. Offensively, yes, I have my reservations still.
And that's the only question, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at this ranking, if BYU would have had a type of game against Stanford that they did against Portland State, you'd probably see them right behind Texas Tech.
But I will say, BYU's and this factors into all this. BYU's win over Stanford looked a little bit better after Stanford actually beat Boston College and was a huge underdog, and they put up 30 points. So BYU, I don't know if they're number 4 good, but I think Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, TCU, could they all make the playoff and contend in a playoff game? Absolutely.
Well, and I think Utah is number 8 good.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, they've moved up 4 spots this week, 5 spots the week before. People are starting to go, oh, okay, hold on a minute. I think Utah feels like they're number 8 good. But why not? These teams are performing right now. That's the difference. These teams are performing.
Yes.
If your team isn't performing, even if you're getting wins, and Texas lost to Ohio State, I get it. You're not going to be on this list if they've already done that. But they also have been performing terribly. Like, their quarterback looks not good. Mm-hmm. He definitely is not a Heisman Trophy winner. So that is the part where you go, just from an eye test perspective over the last few weeks, and from a numbers perspective, where do these teams match up? Pretty interesting to see BYU at 4, Texas Tech at 1, Utah at 8. Who are the other Big 12 teams in this?
TCU at 10.
TCU at 10. Yeah, that's crazy. And why not? Why not? Those are all teams that right now we look at and we go, all right, they could be pretty darn good. Let's take another break. We'll come back. We've got more to go on the program. When we return to our 1st and 12 on a Tuesday, going to have our sound roundup. Sound from across the conference from over the weekend of wins and losses and boos and cheers across the entire thing here. So stay right here, dialed in with us. Mitch, Harper, Alex, Kirry on KSL News Radio. It's 1st and 12.
The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. 1st and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Subscribe to the 1st and 12 podcast. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio.
What is up, Big 12 football fans? Every Tuesday night, we're holding it down here on KSL News Radio, talking Big 12 football. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. If you miss any part of the program, you can listen to the show on podcast, KSL Sports app, or Apple, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Just search 1st and 12, and we've got you covered for a weekly check-in on the Big 12. And one of our favorite segments on the program is the Big 12 Sound Roundup.
Big 12 Sound Roundup.
Check 1, 2.
The best bites, cheap shots, and excuses from Saturday's post-game news conferences.
All right, first up here on our sound roundup, let's take a dip into Kyle Whittingham, who must have been, listen, he's done a great job of being measured and semi-calm at these press conferences in the postgame. I would not, check that, I would love to have been a fly on the wall. I would not love to have been a guy on that Utah team in the locker room. Kyle Whittingham, though, his team righted the ship. It took them a half to do it. I mean, all they had to do was finish drives, and that's exactly what they wanted to go through. Here was Kyle Whittingham and his reaction right off of the bat against that first half and the struggles they had on the offensive side of the ball, putting points on the board.
We, moved the ball up and down the field. In fact, we had 540 some odd yards of offense, and it was almost exactly split evenly in between halves, but drastic difference in the scoreboard. We just found a way to not finish drives in the first half and missed a few kicks and consequently it was a tight game at halftime, 3-0. But then in the second half, complete flip from what we did in the first half as far as finishing drives. The yardage again was about the same, 270 roughly in each half, but we got to finish drives, and that's what we did in the second half. And fortunately, our defense was good the entire night and kept us in the game when we were struggling in the first half and not getting any points on the board, so very pleased with the defensive output. Special teams, we have some things to work on. We did do some good things. Kicked the ball well on kickoff out of the end zone. Didn't have to cover any kickoffs. One punt is all, and we did a good job on that rep. And so some good things, but certainly some things to work on.
Utah finished with 541 yards, as Whittingham noted. 230 through the air, 311 on the ground. But, yeah, the scoring heated up in the second half, 28 points, and they just hammered old YO in Laramie. It wasn't even close. It was never in question. It was just kind of self-inflicted wounds. But Devin Dampier, too, 27 of 41, 230, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns. He's taking care of the football, which was a huge storyline coming into the season. He's taking care of the rock.
When he dropped that ball, when that fumble happened into the backfield and he ended up scooping it up and throwing a touchdown, I could just imagine what's going on in his head when that ball hits the turf and he's trying to pick that thing up. to turn that thing around and to put it on the money in the end zone was wild. That was quite a play from over the weekend. A very underrated play as well, because people looked at it and went, "Oh, Devin Dampier, he's awesome." To have that kind of to have that awareness and to be able to keep in your head and to keep those eyes downfield, that's such a hard thing to do in that type of situation. Hey, Rich Rod 2.0 is back at West Virginia, and of course, his first year back, he welcomed everyone back into his fold with a nice win over Pitt in the backyard brawl. Here's what he said afterward.
I'm so happy for our kids, for the state of West Virginia.
What does this mean, Coach?
State of West Virginia. We got a lot of grit. We got a lot of hardworking people. Don't ever quit. Don't ever quit. West Virginia Mountaineers, don't ever quit.
What do you think made the difference, Coach?
Just kept playing. The longer the game's going to go, the better for West Virginia. God bless the Mountaineers, and God bless West Virginia.
I love that. He's such a panderer, too. I mean, is there a version of kissing babies, and is it like hugging a piece of coal in West Virginia? Like, I love it. He's like, we got a lot of hardworking, blue-collared, land-loving people here
because you
love our country. Like, he starts breaking out all the stuff to just to pander to the fandom. Next week they could lose a game and he'll be like, "What do you expect, you guys? Like, I can't be a miracle worker immediately out here." Like, it's just so funny. It almost sounded like they interviewed a drunk guy in the parking lot. That's what it sounded like.
God bless the Mountaineers.
Hey, man, we got out there, got it done.
That was totally a speech to say, I still love this place because.
Yeah.
People
wondered.
There was probably still pockets of that fan base. They're like, really? We hired him again? He left us high and dry from Michigan.
Yeah.
And then he pulls that out, homegrown guy. You know, Mountaineer fans are loving him now. It's because also they lose to Ohio the week prior. The people are probably like, why did we bother doing this?
Yeah, this guy's out.
So that was a little bit much, but it probably spoke to his base, and they probably loved it. And it really was. It felt very political. God bless the Mountaineers.
He's like, you see all these people out here, and like his PR guy whispers in his ear and like tells him a couple people's names. You know, I met a guy today, John, who works at Walmart. Just loved that we got the win for him. It's like, come on, kissing babies out there, Rich Rod.
I'm picturing what coach Joey McGuire saying, "God bless the Red Raiders." Kyle Whittingham saying, "God bless the Utes." It's just all the Mountaineers. That's the only one that works.
Yeah, no, and it speaks to the fan base. There you go. Now on the low side of things, you've got Kansas State head coach Chris Kleiman, who right now is scratching his head, and so is the rest of the Purple Nation there in Manhattan, Kansas, who want to know what the Wildcats are doing. Here's what he had to say after their loss against Arizona down in Tucson.
I feel bad for Ave because I think he's playing well enough for us to win, but he's not getting the time, and we've got to do some evaluating ourselves as a staff of what we need to adjust and change because I don't know what our identity is right now after 4 games. I thought I did after Iowa State, but that hasn't come to fruition. So I know the kids want to win. And I know the kids, we got tough, resilient kids in there that'll come back and battle. We've got great kids. We've got to find some things. Maybe we got to simplify some stuff on both sides of the ball so that our kids can play faster. I thought we didn't play as fast as I would have hoped.
That's coach speak for we're not tough enough.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's weird, too, because Kansas State has always, their identity, when he says, I don't know what our identity is, Kansas State's identity has always been tough in the trenches. They kind of push people around. They're these homegrown farm kids who are just stronger than you are, and they show up and they beat you at the line of scrimmage, and then that's where it starts. And then you add a couple of skill players, and they'll really beat you. And instead, they have this amazing skill player quarterback, and the poor kid feels like he's by himself on this team right now. And what he's saying is, our kids aren't very tough right now. He said, we have tough and resilient kids. We're going to have to go back. They're not tough right now. And that's weird to say about a Chris Kleiman team and about a Kansas State team that we grew up watching be very, very tough in the trenches, and they are nowhere near that right now.
Coming out of week 0, you and I both thought this was a really tough football team. And even you heard there, Kleiman, he thought coming out of Ireland that was probably the case too. He knew what their identity was despite that loss, and that hasn't showed up at all since. The defense has been terrible. And the thing is, too, is they let Noah Fafita go off for some big yardage on the ground. And look, Noah Fafita, he can run, definitely. He's a good athlete, but that's not what he does. He drops back and slings the rock, and they were letting him take off. And then you pair that up with the success that Arizona had on the ground with their running backs. This is not good for Kansas State, and this is just territory that makes you go, does this suddenly ramp up the heat on Kleiman, who's been consistent, but just 3 years ago, he wins a Big 12 title.
Yeah.
But now, though, how quick things change in college football, and ever since NIL came into play, they've just had these duds more times than not in these games at K-State, and they got to get it fixed.
He's this year's Dave Aranda from last year. I mean, you know what's funny? Close, not that far removed from a Big 12 championship, right? And then he starts to struggle. How did Dave Aranda turn that thing around? They had to win 6 games in a row at the end of the year last year to prove to people like, oh, no, we're still a talented team.
Well, and think about at Texas A&M, who had that big win over Notre Dame. Who's their OC? Colin Klein. Kansas State great. That's the type of guy.
That's crazy that he's already calling plays at that level.
Not
now.
to say that, I just think he would be someone that come home, be the head coach, be a guy that's the innovator.
Down. Mitch is already firing people in the Big 12.
Look, I like Chris Kleiman a lot, but sometimes these things, when you are expected to be a title contender and then you can't even win games and you're not competitive, that's surprising.
They've already lost the amount of games they did last year across conference play. I mean, they were 9-3 last year after the end of the regular season. They lost their bowl game too, but guess what? They were 9-3. Last year, and this year they're already 1-3. It's wild.
Coach Prime and the Buffs, they're struggling now, and Ryan Staub, he did not perform well. He got the start at Houston. This was Coach Prime on Ryan Staub and what he thought of his performance.
Staub didn't play well. I saw what you saw. He did not play well today. That wasn't his best, to say the least. I have no idea. Right now. Right now, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about what transpired and how can we prevent what transpired from happening again.
Life comes at you fast. 1 week he's Martin Luther Staub, and then now it's I saw what I saw. You guys saw what you saw it too. Ryan Staub didn't look like the right answer at QB1. Do you think they go back to Caden Salter, or do they go to Juju Lewis, the true freshman?
I think if you pull the trigger on Juju Lewis, it's because you're desperate.
Yeah.
I don't think they're there yet. I think that Caden Salter's enough of a leader that he reels some things in and starts to get some. He wasn't totally. I don't think that Caden Salter's totally out of sorts, and he's won 40 games in his college career. You know what I mean? That guy knows how to win games, and I think that Colorado just needs to get a little bit of a reset. I think that can happen this week. Don't just start. You can't go 3 weeks in a row, have 3 different starting quarterbacks, and say that everything's okay. So I say don't go to the 5-star freshman yet. I say you either stay with Caden Salter that you've had the last couple of weeks, or you go Ryan Staub. We're going to still go with him. We're going to give him that shot that he had last week and keep going there. Don't pull out a third quarterback already your 5th game into the season or your 4th game into the season. That's just not a good look. You're already at a spot right now where you feel a little bit desperate. Don't go all the way desperate yet if you're Colorado. Next week though, if you lose this week, are they in a bye this week? No, they
got Wyoming.
They have Wyoming this week, and Wyoming's not. I don't think Wyoming's a pushover. Wyoming was legitimately tougher
Tough defense
than I thought they were going to be against Utah. So and they'll smell blood in the water too. Like Colorado's got to change some things up for this next week, but I don't know. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, guess what we have? We have our games of the week. We can only pick one apiece. I think we all know what the big one in the conference is going to be.
I think we need to agree on one this time.
We could. I also have a vote for one that's a sneaky, really, really good game that you're going to want to watch out for as well. So there's good games. The conference is starting to fire up. That means we're not having the directional school states against the Big 12 a bunch in the next few weeks here. We're going to start getting into conference play. That's all coming up next right here. It is 1st and 12 on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry.
Today's just the start of the Big 12 and Power 5 talk to come. Listen to JJ and Alex Monday on your drive home. Afternoons from 3 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back to another edition of 1st and 12. It is Alex Kirry and Mitch Harper. Thanks for being with us on the program. Mitch, of course, is our BYU insider for KSLSports.com, host of Cougar Tracks and Cougar Sports Saturday, right here on your dial on Saturdays on KSL News Radio. Alex Kirry here. I host with JJ, with Jeremiah Jensen from KSL TV. We do our daily show over on the KSL Sports Zone on 97.5. JJ and Alex, appropriately named for the afternoon program. We've got our 1st and 12 big game of the week, and I want to jump in here and just mention a game before we actually get to the one that's the most important game of the week. I do think that a sneaky good game, and one you got to look out for, is this Baylor and Arizona State game this week.
That's a good one. That's a good pull.
It's a game that means a lot to both of these teams for very, very different reasons. Now, it's not just because ultimately you want to win every game. ASU is a litmus test for everybody now, right? Everybody's looking at ASU and going, these are the reigning champs. We're going to kind of compare ourselves with. Baylor is in full, we're trying to come back mode to all of it, to be as good as anybody thinks. And Baylor could make a statement this weekend against Arizona State. I think that's a sneaky good game between two teams that, frankly, could be very well in the conversation about being one of those teams, or maybe even both could find their way back to the Big 12 championship game by the end of the year, because I think they're both that talented. It's a really, really good game for early in the season. This obviously the Utah-Texas Tech game is like crazy that we're getting hit with that game this early in the season, this early on a Saturday, but I think that Baylor-ASU game is also a pretty nice one to be able to take in this weekend.
That is a good game, but all eyes are going to be on Salt Lake nationally and in the Big 12. Big noon kickoff is going to be there for number 16 Utah versus number 17 Texas Tech. Massive game. It feels like Joey McGuire's been, keeping eyes on this game since Big 12 Media Day. He's known that this was going to be the game where he was going to really learn about his Texas Tech squad. And I think for Utah to really show that they are completely night and day different from what they were last year. I think we've already seen that already, but I think there's still maybe a little bit more doubt considering how bad UCLA has been. I mean, they fired their head coach, and Wyoming kind of gave Utah a little bit tougher run than people expected. This is going to be really the tail game for both teams. What do you just think? Your early thoughts on this Texas Tech-Utah matchup?
If you would have told me the Texas Tech and Utah matching up, we knew this was going to be a good game at the front end. We both knew that Utah was going to be better this year than they were last year. We both knew Texas Tech was going to be one of these teams that people looked at and said, hey, they could be a Big 12 title contender. And we got exactly what we wished for. They're both ranked in the teens. They should probably both, frankly, be ranked higher. Both teams are putting out more than 500 yards of offense a game. Yes, Utah is putting out more than 500 yards of offense a game. Their quarterbacks are super efficient. You've got talent across both boards. And I think you have a Texas Tech defense that's better than we've seen in the past. They're just not as good as that Utah defense that is elite across the country, not just in this conference. Utah's defense is back to being one of the better ones that we've seen in a long, long time, and it's the one that you expected to see last year. It's one that played very, very well last year, but you just couldn't tell because of the offense. I'm looking forward to it because I think that what's crazy about this game is it could be one of these crazy shootouts. It could get into a wild shootout situation.
Well, and that's what I was kind of wondering, because I feel like which defense does have the most success, because this could be a game where winner first to 40 wins, potentially. I just think that Texas Tech's offense is flying high. Utah's offense has been excellent. I'm really curious to see, John Henry Daly, he's leading the country in sacks. He's got 5 sacks. Mm-hmm. I was so high on him when he signed out of BYU. When they lost him, that was such an underrated loss for BYU. He's a good player. Logan Fano's been kind of, like, his usage has been kind of light, it feels like. We're really curious to see him perform at a high level in this one. This is going to be a great matchup, and I think for Texas Tech, too, their heralded defensive line that they pretty much just got from the portal, they got to show up. They got to earn their paycheck, basically, this week against Utah's offensive front. Like, that is an absolute epic battle in the trenches. Utah's O-line versus Texas Tech D-line.
Probably the best in the country.
Big time.
Texas Tech's defensive line, one of the best in the country. It's what you sign up to look for. It's what you want. I just think that Utah defense has been on this stage more often than the Texas Tech defense has. And in this particular setup, and I get it, the night game is so much funner. It's so much more of a fun atmosphere up at Rice Eccles. It's not going to have the same edge to it, but Texas Tech is going to go into a place that they have no idea what type of vibe it's going to be there at Rice Eccles Stadium. And I think they'll be surprised and shocked by how it's going to be. It's going to be a fun one. Looking forward to it. We have much more to break down on that and much more coming up. Hour number 2 is going to bring you our weekly Big 12 power rankings. If there's going to be a place where we argue, it might be in this next segment. We have to be unanimous on these power rankings. And so see where they compare this week, where they did last week. See if you disagree with us. Join us. More to go right around the corner. It is 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, KSL News Radio. It's First and 12.